Jacki Jones, thank you so much for being here with me today on the Woo Report.
I'm so excited to be here. Woo woo.
Well, we are connected through one of my best friends, Allie. When I was in the throes of my spiritual awakening 3 years ago is when we did a session together. And we're going to get into what that looked like. But you are a licensed mental health counselor. You are a Reiki Master, an Oracle tarot card reader, and you offer a number of other spiritual services: sage cleaning, animal healing, crystal healing, and IET angelic and energy healings.
Yeah, you got a mouthful there. I
I
do.
know so many things. I want to start with Reiki.
Reiki is this word that gets thrown around. Some people have heard of it, some people haven't really. It has gone really mainstream, but it's basically the word Reiki. If you pull it apart and dissect it a little bit, there's Rei and there's Ki. So Rei stands for universal spiritual wisdom, like anything higher power and higher source. That can mean like anything for anybody. So another misconception with Reiki is that it's like this religious thing. It is not. It can be if you allow it to, but it doesn't have to be. So it kind of like stands on its own as a spiritual practice and form of energy healing. So when you have the Rei, which is this universal spiritual wisdom, and you have Ki, which is life energy, life force. Obviously, we are all here as humans alive. We all have life force or the Ki. In other practices, you've probably heard of like Chi, like it's been called lots of different things, but it's basically the life force, prana, breath, energy that moves through us. So when you combine the two, it's basically universal life force energy. Now, what does this mean in terms of like
It's
life?
like a big concept, like universal life force energy just moving through us. Like, what?
Yeah. And people don't think about this on the day to day. Like you wake up, you breathe, you go through your day, and that's it.
Yeah.
But I had such a hard time actually thinking about explaining all of this because for me, it's like a knowing, a feeling, like in terms of actually facilitating the healing. So I'm like, oh God, like how do you make this digestible for people that are like, what is this concept? What does it mean?
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, as we move through life, okay, we have these meridians, we have things called chakras. Again, another like buzzword that gets thrown around. These are basically the things that keep us balanced and aligned. They're all whether it be negative thoughts or thought patterns, whether it be physical, mental illness, whether it be basically anything that is coming into our field. They impact the way that our meridians flow. This can lead to dis-ease, not necessarily disease, but dis-ease in the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual bodies. So how Reiki comes into play is we're working on these different points in the system. And actually, I just facilitate the healing. That's another misconception that it's like my energy that I'm giving to you or that it's not that at all. It's using universal spiritual life force healing into these different meridians, into these different chakras, right? To help align and balance, to create healthier life, to create a little bit more cushion in the dis-ease.
Let's dive into meridians and chakras and like what that means on our body, in our being.
Just as kind of like basic and 101, each chakra, there are lots of them, but like we're familiar with like crown, third eye, throat, heart, solar plexus, sacral, root. These are some of the main ones that are worked with. Now, what can this mean? Okay, let's take it very literally. Like I am someone, I don't know, that has chronic headaches. Okay. Right. Like we think, okay, like this area, something's going on here. There might be a blockage. So where Reiki comes in is we can actually utilize while we're working through this crown chakra, we can be opening up some of these energy pathways and unblocking, which can help with physical discomfort and pain. Again, Reiki can be helpful with so many things, but like chronic pain, negative thought patterns, things like that. So like that's like a very tangible example, or someone that has a hard time communicating or speaking their truth, or things of that nature, right? Throat chakra. So I can tap in and connect with someone else's energy, whether here physically together or distance, and be able to kind of locate where are some of these blockages, for example, in correlation to what chakra, and where does the work need to go. Now, it's not necessarily like, who am I to make the decision of what and where needs to be healed? So in this process is a huge trust and surrender aspect, where like I facilitate, but the ray knows where to apply to the key, if that makes sense. So it's kind of like this opening up and flow of energy.
What are you doing
Mm-hmm.
that you are seeing, and how is the person receiving it, and what are they seeing? Are they having visualizations? Are they talking to you about it? Are you like, oh, there's a block, you're having headaches because there's a creative block in you? Or
So
how
there's
does it come up?
yes. Okay. So there's not one specific answer to this, as every client that I've worked with is completely different, as like, hello, why shouldn't we be?
Mm-hmm.
But for me as a practitioner, and I can only speak to my experience, I identify with being claircognizant. That's the hardest one to explain because you just know. Like I can't.
It's a knowing.
It's an all
There's a
know.
bunch of clairs. There's clairsentient. There's clairvoyance. There's clair
That will just take
audience.
too much time today, right?
It's a different way of like spiritually connecting. Medium. Some people hear spirits talk to them. Some people can like see through their third eye. Some people just know, and then yours is a knowing.
Is in knowing, yeah. The first thing I typically do, and I do this with both my client and myself, is something called surround, ground, and shield. Okay. Where I envision myself surrounded by like a bright white protective light, almost like I'm in, this protective bubble. Ground, because obviously with energy being so high up here, we don't want to just like get lost in some of that. We want to stay grounded. We want to be connected. So I kind of, ground myself in having that place to release. Because also, when you think about the fact that a client is usually releasing a lot of this energy in order to make room for the new, where's that going to go? Like, it's got to go somewhere. We can talk about that later too. But the grounding is really important because it keeps us like here anchored in life, which we need. And the shield is also just protecting ourselves, protecting those chakras, protecting our energy. Yeah, we've got the bubble around us to surround us, but it's really just envisioning, like sometimes I will quite literally envision like a shield going across like my heart, my solar plexus, like protecting me. So that's just kind of, there's no right or wrong way to do this. And I actually encourage everyone that's listening or watching to do this. You can do this every morning when you wake up. You can do it before you go to sleep. You can do it at any point where you are feeling like a lot of energy. But throughout a session, like there's a number of things that can happen for myself and for a client. And normally, if someone is receiving Reiki, I've heard, and of course, I've had sessions myself, but like you can experience temperature change, tingling, heat, numbness, like in the physical body, right? You can notice like certain areas twitching, or certain areas getting hot, or certain areas getting cold. And this can happen because there's quite literally a flow of energy like happening throughout your body. And even something that just like mentally, I'm getting a visual right now in order to like help me best explain, is like sometimes when you feel anger, right? Emotions are also energy. And sometimes like you feel anger, right? And I feel like I get this visual of like this uprising of like heat, right? Maybe you're like, you clench your fist and your hands feel hot, or you feel like heat around your face. We look flushed. There is like something that happens energetically when we have a response, even a physiological one, to an emotional experience. So a number of things can happen during a session, but the best part about it as a client is you lay there and you relax. I've been told sometimes afterwards it feels like they've just gotten a massage, right? You feel relaxed, you feel calm. This can help with anxiety, depression, panic attacks, chronic stress, chronic headaches. I mean, like the list goes on. There really isn't an end to what it can help.
And so from your perspective, are you like intentionally moving energy through your clients' like chakras, like if they're stuck, if you imagine like wheels of light or wheels of different colored light, I feel they
Yes.
should be like turning, right?
There are, yeah, that's a really interesting way to think about it. And I don't know that I get that visual necessarily. And again, every practitioner is different and there is no right or wrong way to experience it. But I will just get, again, this knowing of like, stop here. Like instead of just like kind of passing
Mm,
through it or working through it, like up heart, like something's going on there, right? And then this is where like the intuitive part of the healing session comes in, where I can tap in a little bit more, right? Is there loss here, right? Are we in
mm,
pain? Do we have heartache? And I'll really try to like hone in on like what's happening here and why here, right? We
mm,
can even bring it a little bit lower, right? Okay, by the sacral chakra, creativity. Is there a blockage there in terms of like, are we stuck in a place of like stagnance in work? Is it, and like, this is where I'll really try to tap in to see what it's telling me. And then, of course, post session, right, I'll ask the client, like, what did you experience? What was this like for you? And they can share what they experienced. Sometimes it's like, I just chilled, I relaxed, I saw nothing. And guess what? Even in a session like that, you still receive the benefits. It doesn't have to be this insane, eye opening experience for everyone. Some people will be like, oh, that was crazy. Like it felt like my stomach was like on fire at one point. And it's like, well, that was the movement of energy. And I can also validate or confirm, like, oh, actually, like around here, I felt stuck. What's going on there for you or why? And it'll be
mm,
sometimes like, oh, that's crazy. Like, that's because, like I had experienced a miscarriage, pregnancy loss, like whatever that
mm,
was. There will sometimes be correlations to where I just feel this. So for me, it's like, stop, pause, or like figure this
mm,
out. That's kind of how the knowing happens for me.
mm. And I know our friend Allie, our mutual friend Allie, I know when she got a session with you, she had these visualizations about herself in flower fields. I don't know if you remember this. She had always had this dream of opening her own flower business, and she hadn't done anything with that yet. That was kind of the impetus that kind of set her off on her like new Allie flower journey, which, she loves now. And she's like doing workshops and she's doing, Mother's Day and all the things. And it's so exciting.
I would love to talk about this because for me, it's also wild and amazing for me as a practitioner to see how Reiki and how energy healing and these modalities impact people's lives. Because for Allie, like that session for me, I remember she was receiving the Reiki, and I remember afterwards, and again, like, we're friends too. And I was
Yeah.
just like, Allie, I don't know why, but like, what is this about? I see flowers all around you. And this wouldn't have even been something I knew. This was like a bloop, a little blip, a little seed, like in her mind at that point in time.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, I've always had this interest in this creative, venture. And like, I kind of want to do this thing. And literally, because of some of the opening, whether it be through the sacral, through the crown, these different openings allowed it to flow more clearly,
Mm-hmm.
more balanced there. And this
Mm-hmm.
literally potentially allowed her to take off in this direction where it was maybe the validation she needed. Because again, how the heck would I know? Like, why do I see her surrounded by flowers? Like, what does that even mean? I had no idea
Mm-hmm.
she even loved flowers, like at that point in
Me
time.
neither. I didn't know that either. I didn't
Yeah.
know she like always dreamed of doing that. When she said that, I was like, great. How can we support?
Right. Right.
Like, let's do it.
Mhm.
Yeah, so awesome. So I have gotten two Reiki sessions before. The first time we went to Miraval because the Ellen DeGeneres show had given us like the staff members like a trip to Miraval.
Oh, so cool.
And I wouldn't have gone probably without that, but I went and it was my best friend from growing up. And I remember I was like wondering whether I fell asleep on the table. I wasn't sure. But at the very end, I had this visual of like a tumbleweed, but not a tumbleweed. It was like the weight of a tumbleweed, but it was a black tornado, like going across a road. And then it like flew away as if it was some darkness, some shadows,
Mhm.
something leaving, like felt like some sort of release. Talking to the practitioner afterwards and being like, not really getting any sort of validation or confirmation there. She was just like, yeah, Maybe it was a release. Yeah. What do you think? What do you
Well, I
interpret
was
that
just
as?
going to say, like, this is what's so important in the ways that I work. I think that dialogue and that conversation is so important so that there is clarity for the person, right?
Mm-hmm.
Again, there is no right or wrong. Like, what does that even mean? Like, here's your experience, here's where you saw. We can do our best to intuitively figure out and put together like why this is something that's coming up for you, or like what this might mean, or
Mm-hmm.
where during the session this came up to try to put together. And
Mm-hmm.
guess what? Right now, or in that moment, maybe it didn't make sense. Maybe there was no real tangible reason why you should have seen this black, heavy tumbleweed that kind of came and swooped and went.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Again, to me, something like that might symbolize like, heavy, dense energy leaving. And
Yeah.
it could have been as simple as that. It
Yeah.
could have been something dense and heavy and tragic and traumatic swooping in and shaking things up and
Mm.
leaving, right? Again, sometimes we don't know until further experiences down the line come. And that's where we go, oh, and it's that knowing and that click sometimes for people of like,
Mm.
this is what that meant.
Next time I had one was with you. I went to you after Allie had gone to you too. And I know that my friend Sarah had gone to you too. And I looked back at our texts as I was prepping for this podcast, and I saw so clearly this time in my life, which was like August 2022, where I was fully in a dark night of the soul. And I like had like forgotten how that felt, but in my exchanges with you, we had initially booked this like a session for May, and we did not do it until August because I kept coming back to you to reschedule because I was like,
No,
I am not in a good headspace.
you're
It's
not
not
ready.
right for me right now. And I know that back in 2022, I had two little kids, and it is hard as a mom that was working full time to find that space for herself. That turbulence and like that feeling and that like uncertainty and not being okay. I was like, I don't feel that anymore. And I'm like, is there a seed that you planted in this Reiki session that helped clear some of that?
So
Possibly.
what you're doing right now is
Yeah.
giving me a lot of power. Like as
Mm.
if it is like me as a facilitator that has done something like for you or to
Mm.
you. What you've
Mm.
allowed me to do is assist you on your own, your higher self, your healing process. And
Mm.
that's what's so powerful about this is people think like this is me doing to or for you. In a
Mm.
way, yes, I am the transmitter and I help channel and I help support, right?
Mm.
But it's up to the client to be ready
Mm.
mentally, energetically for
Mm.
the session. And I was so glad and proud of you, like at the time where if you weren't feeling like it was a time you were ready to receive, you
Mm.
still would have gotten at any point in time what you needed at that time. But
Mm.
it's possible that when we actually did meet and have our session, again, divine timing, that was when it was supposed to happen for you for whatever was happening then, whatever was coming next, and
Mm.
trusting that process.
Mm.
So, where here's your question of like, did you plant the seed? Did you propel me forward?
Yeah.
In a way, I helped facilitate and assisted you and supported you on that journey. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was really you that decided
Mm.
intuitively that you were ready for whatever that next thing was. And I was
Mm.
there to support it.
Oh, I love it. Empowering the people. We love to we love to see it, Jackie. We love that. What I loved about our session and what I remembered about it without like looking back at our texts was that part of it was that you pulled cards for me. And this is before I was really like doing it on my own for myself. And when you pulled cards for me, you pulled 11/8, which is my birthday, November 8th. And I remember them like flying out of the deck, these cards. It's not like you were just like you were shuffling and these cards
You
flew out
get
of the
jumpers.
deck. You got jumpers. And it was like 11/8. And you were like, isn't that your birthday? I was like, yeah, it is. So I love how you kind of use all of the different modalities that you feel good about to help in a session. And I'm wondering if like, can we do a card pull for the collective now? Or like, how do you feel about that? And should we do one? What do you think?
Yes, we should. And I love this because this is another like very small representation of how energy works. So we can do a card pull right now. And what's amazing about it is regardless of where, when, how you are, whenever you hear this, whenever you see this, if you do as a person, it's meant for you at that point in time. There's like a reason why you're seeing it when you are. So it doesn't matter what date it is today that this is being recorded. It could be years down the line. Even if you go to rewatch it at another point in time, there's an energetic reason why that message is maybe for you. What I think might be best for today is doing some oracle cards. And
Great.
granted, we're talking about energy. So I do have a really beautiful energy oracle deck here that I love to work with because it really gives like a nice little blip of like, what's the energy that's going on right now for the collective and even as an individual, but mostly like there are patterns sometimes to why we're all experiencing things. Like when you talk to people and you're like, oh, I'm going through similar, or, oh, I feel similarly. And sometimes there are things that are really connecting us at that point in time. Sorry for my noisy shuffling.
No, that's good. Noisy shuffle because,
Yeah.
you know, some people will be listening to this. So if you are listening and you want to get a visual, you can watch on YouTube. Or I will also put some photos of this on the Woo Report's Instagram for you.
Cool. Yeah. So this is another part of like I can kind of talk you through while I'm shuffling. There will be a point where I kind of just hear in my head to stop, or I'll feel like a certain card is sticking out for a reason. So we're stopping here. We have the garden and the gate, which is so interesting because we were just talking about flowers and all of that. The number is 30 and it's the garden and the gate. And visually, you get a very spring-like feeling. And we are just actually heading into the season of spring right now. Being that there is awakening, there is blossoming. We are quite literally coming out of this cold, dark hibernation period, winter of cold. We're defrosting, we're opening up. And even if you're not listening now, when it is this time that we're heading into spring, it's possible that the next point in time that you're looking to really connect, to really propel forward, it might be when the weather is a little bit nicer. This might be your sign to like not really make the moves right now. But for those of you that are listening now, as we're heading into spring, I'm getting this like propelling forward type of energy of like, this is the time to take action. It's not just time to like think about the things you want to do, make the plan, really like that should have been your time over the winter when you're like in hibernation mode. Now is like you get that thought, find ways that the actions can support it to go through it. Because if you can see, very passively, this girl is like standing at the gate and it's like beyond the horizon. It's like the flowers, the butterflies, like all you have to do is open the gate and step inside. You could see the gate. You could see the flowers. Like it's all right there. Take the steps and go through. It's at your fingertips.
I love that.
There's that energy, and I am feeling like I should pull one more. If that's okay.
Yeah, let's pull one more. But what about the number? Is like 30 mean something or 3 or what is it? What does the numbers mean?
So to me, numbers don't always mean something. Sometimes I will get that little like, stop, ask about the number. Like with our session, right? Like 11 and 8 could have meant nothing. And it could have just been the card and what's about the card. But for some reason, I was compelled to ask you why 11, why 8, right? And it's because it had some significant meaning. I'm not feeling today that it has some specific meaning, but the only thing I am kind of getting was that this directly applies to those that are maybe around the time period of like in their 30s.
Oh.
Like, so anyone that's listening that you are contemplating things like if you are maybe age-wise, like in your 30s, whether you're thinking of doing something new, whether you're thinking of taking those steps, I'm feeling like that's the new, like, I don't know, like 30s, the new 20s, not that like 20s are something to be, but like that's the only potential connection that I'm making there.
All right.
And here we have financial constraints.
Ooh.
Okay.
Tell us more.
I will.
Lucky number 13.
So we have the number 13.
Yeah.
But for this, right, someone might see this card and be like, this means that I'm going to have no money or something. It doesn't. It really doesn't. I'm taking this as a sign, given that it's coming along with this card, of it's possible that you've been utilizing the financial constraints as an excuse of why you can't, why you shouldn't, why you haven't. And what this means is once you eliminate that mindset of like, this is what's stopping you, this is not me saying like, go off the rails and be like, so again, it's possible that there are many people listening that have felt really held back during this time. So it's not necessarily meaning that there are going to be financial constraints. It's that this type of energy has been playing into what you've been experiencing lately. And here's what you have to do about it.
We're going to take the step. We're going to take actions, and we're going to stop having the limited beliefs around finances.
You said it, sister.
All right. I love it. Thank you for that. That was fun.
Yeah.
I really want to get into what IET is.
Okay.
Because I had never heard about it before when I was like looking at your services on your website. I'd never heard about it before. So
Okay.
What is IET?
So IET, so this is another healing modality that I use. It's usually like along with Reiki. Reiki is like my overall, like my main thing, right? And then there will be times where when we were bringing up like meridians before, right? These are more like accessible points in the body. And I guess another way I can kind of explain it is like people have heard of like acupuncture, right? In terms of like how that modality, again, another modality, like how it's supposed to like open up and help healing. It's because it's like touching on specific points. So I feel like where the connector is with Reiki and IET is that IET works with like that integration channel to help rebalance the energy. And the difference there is, and again, you can receive distance sessions with this as well. Like I just, the way I move, and as you can see, my hands moving, if you're watching, my hand movement's a little different because with each release, it works for me. There are different ways that traditional IET explains it, but for me, it works with a release and an imprint. And what I mean by that is there is a specific release that happens in specific points of the body that are associated with emotional causes of the energy blockages. What can some of these be? This can be guilt. This can be shoulds. This can be shame. This can be heartache and betrayal. This can be threat. So all of these different things rest in specific places in the body. So when I say there's a release and an imprint, I'm literally working within these meridians and helping to release the energy from these points. For example, we're releasing distrust. We're releasing shame. And we are imprinting trust. We are imprinting unconditional love. So with each release, there is an imprint. And as you can hear there's like a balance to it. We're trying to create more balance. So that works off of a very different system.
You're saying we. Is the we you, yourself and I, you and spirit, you and I know you've said, so like when I looked on your website, it says IET uses violet angelic ray through the 9 healing angels of the energy field to work directly with your 12-strand spiritual DNA. And I was like,
you're like,
what does that mean?
Right?
Yeah.
So these are coined terms, obviously, through IET. Now, what does it mean to me as like a daily functioning human, right? Like we have our like double helix, right? Like DNA. This is proposed based off of this theory that there are additional strands that are inactive in people that can be activated through this spiritual connection, as in like we actually have more strands like in our DNA. It's not biological, obviously, right? But it's like there are these additional strands that when we connect with the angelic ray, when we connect with these specific angels. So again, do you find that there are like some similar things here? Reiki, Ray meaning universal, spiritual wisdom, Ray, anything bigger than ourselves. Whereas the modality here is working with these angels, which again, universal, bigger spiritual purpose, bigger spiritual reason that are helping to assist us in our healings. So they're just different modalities calling on different universal sources in a way.
So talk to me about angels.
Mm.
Because I feel like for me, when someone's like, you have spirit guides, I'm like, okay. Someone explains like the higher self. I'm like, okay. Like, I don't know why those concepts are easier for me to get. I haven't like dug into angels, but I know that there's a lot of talk about archangels and there's different types of angels. And like, then there's like the, religious type of like angels that we hear about.
What angels do I work with on a day to day? Okay. And like you bring up archangels, right? There's Archangel Michael, there's Raphael. To me, that's like all heart healing energy. So there are specific angels that are associated with different parts of healing. You can call upon them at any time. And again, if you are someone who's religious, right, these might have been names that either you've heard of.
So like are the archangels in like the Catholic Church? Like I didn't grow up Catholic.
Yeah, nor did I. I think it's just basically like on my spiritual journey that I have been on, I've kind of learned about them. And there also is a book by Radley Valentine. It's the Compendium of Magical Things. Where I remember like years ago reading this, and the funny story that I wanted to share was there is an angel that I work with frequently. Walter. Hear me out.
I love it.
To me is the parking angel. And I feel like anyone that knows me is going to laugh, or anyone that's been in a car with me is going to laugh. Because according to Radley Valentine, Walter is the angel that you call upon. Like, for example, you need a parking space. Like, it's going to be crowded. It's going to be whatever. Like, I will get into a lot, whether it's like the grocery store or whatever. And like my husband will laugh or whatever, and I'll be like, all right, Walter, like, let's go. Like, show me what you got today. Let's go. And like, I'm not kidding. 10 out of 10. Like there will just be like this spot or like, within a couple of minutes, or if we're in this.
Walter, I'm going to come at you next time. I'm not in Los Angeles anymore, Walter, but next time I'm in a busy parking lot.
But I say this to you because this is not like a traditional angel that like people might work with, but like Walter's there. Walter can help all of us. So like call him Walter. But specifically to IET, okay, there are 9 different angels that you can work with that are all associated with different chakras. And just for the sake of time, I will share that the main one that I work with is Ariel. And Archangel Ariel is connected to nature, is connected to, of course, the universe, but like the angel of wisdom and insight. So with that being said, I find I call upon her because it helps me like facilitate more clearly, getting that wisdom, getting that clarity. That when I do my little thing before sessions and I call in and I activate, but like, again, like I'm getting even the tingle now saying it and doing it because it's part of what I'm thinking of, because again, thoughts are energy, thoughts are power.
So you get like a tingly feeling on the crown of your head?
I just felt as it like, it's as if someone just came behind me and went like, ooh, like just gave me like a little like head scratch.
Wow. And that's like, and that's how it feels when you like, when you activate, when you like intentionally call on these angels for guidance.
Yeah, it's always up here because really that's your connection.
Your connection. Wow. Okay. So you call on the angels and then what? Are you doing something similar to Reiki where you're like intentionally asking for like, what are the blockages? Like what, or you're doing something else? Yeah.
Yeah. So you can, of course, just be like, I just want an IET session. Like you absolutely can do that. But more so my style is integrating and mixing because you receive like all of the benefits. You're getting the angels, you're getting the universal life, you're getting it like all. So like that's where I utilize my intuition to be like, okay, maybe we're like stuck at the shoulds, right? Like I should this, I should. Whereas it's like a thing where that's how I'll facilitate some of the releasing and imprinting. And it won't be in all of the different areas. For example, like, the 9 areas that you would in a traditional session. It'll be a bit modified based on what the person needs. So yeah, like I call in and typically it depends on the person, but for the most part, I feel like I, kind of start at the top chakras, because again, we're opening up. I'll access the heart space because everything and anything we do is in love, out of love, unconditional love, because it's the highest vibration. It's the highest source, like that we're all connected to. This is literally, how we're all connected. And then, yeah, like we kind of just take it down. I'll pause where I need to. And again, I don't know how many more things I can throw at you, but there are also some times where like I'll utilize crystals in the healings too, as different crystals are associated with different chakras. And that whole thing is complex too. But like typical ones that I'll use will be selenite. That's for like, cleansing and clearing. I do tend to use a lot of smoky quartz, which for me like helps or black tourmaline, like to remove some of that stagnant energy to help with the releasing. I'll do that by the feet sometimes because that's a huge release point as it's what grounds us like physically here. I tend to also try to connect with like the earth a lot too, in terms of like we can disperse that energy. And I always send it up with love as well. So I have my own process at the end of like, well, now we've released all of this energy. Like, where does it go? Boop, up with love.
Wow. Okay. And so when you're imprinting, you're getting a knowing from maybe Ariel
Mhm.
that's telling you, all right, we're going to imprint this specific, or is it just like the opposite of what's going out, or it just depends?
So there are specific parts of the body, the kidneys, the heart, the throat, neck, the third eye, that are associated with specific emotion points, for example. So there are like different sequences, which again I can't necessarily give all of these sacred secrets of like what is associated with what. But what I will say is when you do have a session, obviously these are things with the dialogue that I am communicating, like, oh, this area there was blockage. Usually that's associated with this. Why is that blocked? Why is that coming up for you? This is what needs to be worked on. And this is what we've now imprinted in. And the imprint is usually the balance out of like what the opposite is. I'm not sure if what I'm saying is making sense, but like if we're releasing distrust, we're imprinting trust because it has to be that equal and opposite balance. And yes, there are parts in the physical body that are represented by specific things that we need to let go of.
There's a lot of chatter about this now. When I got run over by a car, my hip was shattered. And I talked about this with Valerie Maya too. But, she had told me that was about like flexibility and not being flexible. And so like energetically, like it was around being flexible. And, for she was like, but there's something that goes along with every single piece of the body. And so I'm Googling it now, like when things go, I'm like spiritual, like reason why my shoulder hurts. Like, I don't know, like something so random and something will come up, but you are like given an intuition or a knowing.
Yeah. Anyone can like look up what's associated with what, like you can do
Right.
that. And I feel like for you with your hip, I'm also thinking about chakra wise, like where that's located.
Right. Yeah.
Like thinking,
solar plexus or sacral.
Yeah. I'm thinking like sacral, like maybe more so in between sacral and root. And what that tells me is, again, if you're shattering that, and I know you are a creative person, right? You have these ideas and it's like, it was almost a shattering and rebuilding of that creative outlet for you, along with when we think about the root, the foundation, the stability,
Yeah.
Rebuilding all of that in your personal life, in your career, within your soul, all of it.
That is exactly what ended up happening, which is so wild.
It's all
so crazy.
It's all connected. Yeah.
Valerie said this too, like basically every ailment, everything that like happens to your body is not just because of like you getting run over by a car. Like that's not the only reason. The reason is like there's a spiritual reason behind why you are hurting in this area. Even if it seems like, and is that true? Is that what you make of it too? If you're like, my arm hurts, is it because of something like, it's not because you like played pickleball yesterday and you like hurt your arm, is it because of something else?
Yeah, so here's the beauty of it. Why can't it be both? Let's embrace both. Maybe there's a very real human reason why your arm hurts. Maybe you played pickleball and you did whatever. And also, maybe there's a reason why your arm hurts.
And also, I like that. I like that.
We always like the dichotomy of things. Like we're always looking to just like the one thing. And this is where I invite people to think of like, why does it have to be black and white? Why does it have to be one or the other? Like, why can't it be both?
Yeah. We're in search of like the answer. I feel like we're all like, and maybe that's just like growing up. It's like, there's the right answer and for a math equation, like there's a right answer for whatever, you know what I mean? And
That you
like,
just said that word, you said right as I thought it, because I was thinking of sharing the fact that also with like my traditional therapy clients, one of the things I always challenge them on is like right and wrong, right? Right for who and wrong for who. We think there is one universal right, what's right. And we can challenge that, right for who and wrong for who. But I just think it's crazy because as you're like, oh, the right answer, I was like, right. And
yeah,
we're just in sync that way.
people, they have, vertigo and they go to a traditional doctor and like the diamonds in your ears, I forget what they're called, but they're like they're loose and out of whack and that's like giving you vertigo. And is it that like they're loose? Or is it something that's like a deeper spiritual, or is it both? Or is it can be both? And I love that because I have never thought of it that way before.
Yes. And I'm so glad you're bringing that up because yes, we're talking about some of these like physical ailments and these like things and how, like Reiki and IET, like these healing modalities, these are not supposed to be used in replacement of traditional medicine and care, right? Like go to the doctor, right? Like
Right.
go to the doctor.
Yes.
Utilize your spiritual practices and be the
Yes.
connector there, right?
Yes.
Like this is not like, oh, because I can heal on this level, like I need nothing else. Like we
Right.
are humans and we are here having a human experience. And that's another misconception of like, oh, like because you are a healer or because you give healings or because like, does that like make you exempt from like
Yeah.
life experiences and pain and sadness and breaking a leg and like no, like of course those things are going to happen to you, to me, to right. It doesn't like make us exempt. It's just that if you are more open to these alternative ways and methods of healing, it really just like opens up your life to these possibilities of like I can go to the doctor and I can, tap in and become more intuitive and be more in tune with my body and see how this relates to this
And see maybe what we need to learn from all the things while we're also being healed, like in a physical way with a cast or, with a surgery or, whatever. Well, I love all of that. Okay. So Jackie, tell me how you got into all of this, as you just said, alternative healing.
Yeah. There's a part of me that's like, does everyone experience to this a certain level? And I think that we do. As children, there is this like wonder about magic. There is like this interest, right? Like the world is like literally
Chills.
magical, right?
Yes.
And then like this is very generally speaking, right? I'm not speaking for everyone's experience, but like there was this feeling of like something more. Like I have very specific visuals of like myself as a child, for example, like laying on my front lawn, like looking up at the sky and being like, oh my God, the stars. Like, I think I was there one day. Or like, I think, like just these weird, like as a child, like thoughts. And right, they come and they go. And then what happens? Like we go on our path of life, we get older, we're shown like the realities and hard truths of the world. And things just start to happen. And like we lose some of the magic. That's okay. We need to like live real life. But then I think that sometimes we get these nudges that like pull us back. And for me, I think for me and for a lot of people, this started happening around 2020, maybe even a little bit before because like the energies.
I'll put myself in that bucket.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, that's when I got run over by a car. So
Wow.
That's a nudge. It was like a push and a nudge and like,
And a throw.
And a throw. Yeah. But yeah, totally. I'm listening. Keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just felt like I kept having these experiences that were like pushing me in this direction. I remember having a card reading that was like telling me about like the next thing I was pursuing in my life, which ended up becoming returning for my master's and, for going for mental health counseling and completely pivoting. Pivoting is like I changed the course of my life and career.
What were you doing beforehand?
So before I was a therapist, I worked for corporate Starbucks. I was a store manager and I did scheduling and ordering and ran a business and ran a store and did all of those things. It 150,000% served its purpose for the time that I did. I loved it for reasons I loved it. I hated it for reasons I hated it. But again, after having my daughter, so I have a 7.5-year-old daughter and I have twin 18-month-old girls as well. But at the time, like my daughter being so young, I was like really struggling with like my store that was my baby because like I was doing whatever there, but then now I have
Yeah.
like a real baby. So like, oh God, what does this mean for me? And I felt tugged in different directions and I realized that I wanted to spend more time doing what I needed to do. And Starbucks made that difficult as it's a 365, and that was my store. So I'm responsible for it at all times. Then I was like, you know what? I need to do something full time and I need to 9 to 5 would be great. And I tried something there and oh my God, it was a crash and burn for a very specific reason because I lost my job just as the world shut down. Like it was part of the like cause and effect of like, well, we can't afford you anymore. Like everything's shutting down and business is shutting down. Bye bye. And it was kind of like, well, now what? And I remember having a specific card reading. And I also had taken a trip with my husband, again, like 2 weeks before like the world shut down, to New Orleans. And I got this crazy like ruin reading, like bones and like from this like woman in the shop. And it was like wild. And she like drew out all the stuff for me. And
Ooh.
literally it showed books and change and like school. And I was like, that's weird. She's bringing this up because like at the next night at dinner, I planned on having this conversation with my husband. How I was like, you know what? I think I kind of want to go back. I've always wanted to be a therapist, but made bazillion excuses why I couldn't because I have such a big heart and I love people and I care for people and I'd be way too emotional and all of the excuses instead of the one or two really big reasons why I absolutely should. And all of those reasons became abundantly clear to me as I went through. And again, taking that action, it was like March, April. So we are in that same season here and now where it was like this propel forward of what's going to grow here. And it was me and my new career path. And it took a lot of strength and 150% support, from my husband, from my family, as like now I'm going back for my master's at, I don't know, how old was I? Like, I don't know, 30 or something. Like not many people do that. And I love utilizing like my example, even with clients of like, it's never too late to do anything. I had every reason why, like we have a house and we have expenses. And, I was blessed having the support that I had to be able to support this. I felt a pull, like I needed to order a deck. I felt like I needed to do this. I felt like once I had my deck, I'm like, why do I feel like I need to call this person and pull a card for them? Why do I feel like, and again, you have so many external voices coming at you being like, this is not you. This is not who you are. This is not what you do, right? Imposter syndrome. Who do you think you are? My soul knew who I was. My higher self knew who I was. And I am someone who is here on this earth in this lifetime to do many, 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 many things, right? Wife, parent, like, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
But also I identify as a healer, nurturer, lover, like all of these things. I want to help the masses. I want to, and like, what better way? And I became curious about these different modalities and I explored them. And once you're on this ride, it's more difficult to jump off than to like buckle up, in my opinion.
Yeah. I like that. I like that analogy. Yeah. I do feel like I've been like buckling up since I started on the journey, and it can be a bumpy ride. I had that exact thought about, oh my God, now I like am awakened. I'm going to like live this charmed life. And that was not at all what the lesson was. The lesson was like, oh no, no, we are going to live a roller coaster life. Like you love roller coasters. Let's fucking go. Let's do the roller coaster, but you gotta enjoy every second of it, even if it's like the low points, even if it's on the high points. And
I want to reframe really quickly for you. That is a choice, but you absolutely don't have to enjoy the low lows and whatever. Like you're allowed to also like feel it because that too is part of the human experience. We often think like, just approach this with gratitude, like just be in every moment, like and yes, it's true. The only moment that exists is right now. Very true. But like, it doesn't mean I have to just love it and just be in it. Like, we need to embrace truly like the ups and downs, because the downs are going to come and they're going to suck. Like, that's also very real. And I feel like a big misconception, like people that do this work, is it's just all up here and it's just happy and healing and positive. And it's not always that. And like, I'm sorry to be the one to break it to you. Like, if you're somebody that's listening and you're like, yeah, ascension and spirituality, like, it absolutely can be the most amazing of amazing things. And also there will be times that you will be so tested, right? Like, what is even real anymore? Like, no, the universe is not real. Like, this is all just fake. And we're all just in, like, it's okay to have these moments. Like you said, out of the soul normally, like when you're on an ascension path that's moving so quickly, you're going so fast up there that like you're going to come right down. And this happens to a lot of people. So I just cushion that for anyone having these experiences.
Yes. And I think like the first dip, I mean, for me, and then the dip was happening for like a year and a half, like right around when we also met, which is why I was like so in and out with you. But yeah, I mean, also Valerie Maya, who's the intuitive that was recently on this podcast, she just lost her house in the Pacific Palisades, lost her house. And when I heard that, I thought the same thing. I was like, oh my gosh, she is so freaking tapped in.
How could this
what does it mean? How could it happen to her? And then, she was like, oh, I love my height. She's like, I gave myself 2 weeks. And then I realized it was an upgrade. It's an upgrade for me, upgrading my life. So it's like, but it's seeing the light through the darkness, but allowing yourself to feel the darkness. And I love that you just said that, because that's also like part of the dichotomy we've been talking about. Those two things can be true. And it's like, I just love it so much. We didn't really get into your spiritual belief system, but I'm curious, like, spiritual belief system moving into, like, what do you think happens when we die?
I have no doubt that there is something bigger and greater, right? Like, is it a God? Like, it could be for you, right? Like, I invite everyone into their own, spiritual, religious, whatever that is for a person, as long as you believe in something greater than yourself, that can be very helpful in your day-to-day life. With that being said, religion doesn't have to be spirituality. Spirituality doesn't have to be religion. So for me personally, I believe in something much bigger than us. I mean, I've quite literally like felt it, experienced it, like physically, mentally, emotionally. Like, I don't know if I have words to say what it is, but we are all connected. Like, I just visually see like this thread just going through every single like person, plant, like living thing, like just we are all like sewn in here and like connected.
I love that. And then what do you think happens when we die?
I think that we take our last breath, our key. The physical body, right, shuts down. The organs can't function. The body cannot function without that vital life force energy. But we are all energy. It has to go somewhere. So I'm not saying that it looks a specific way, it is a specific way, but I believe in wisps and in smoky-like things that I can't put into words, that energy goes off. I don't know exactly what part 2 looks like. I'm sure I've experienced it many, many, many times. I think I have. But here, right now in this human experience, I can't tell you what part 2 looks like, but there is a part 2. Like, we end up somewhere, maybe as something, maybe not right away as something, but that energy goes somewhere. And this is exactly why we can still connect with things like spirit, with, whether it's like you utilize that in your head as like someone specific, a loved one that's passed, or right, like that's what we know how to do here. But it's like so much bigger than that. We may be connected to things that like we don't even know that we're connected to and a part of. I know that was long-winded.
I love that. No, and you know what it made me think of is you were like part 2 somewhere, and in my head it's like part 2 of Wicked, and it's somewhere over the rainbow, and I was just like, woo, let's go.
That is weird because also in my surround ground and shield, like I think
Mm-hmm.
maybe from my correlation of like a young age and like also my connection to like the Wizard of Oz and Wicked, I actually do envision the Glinda bubble
Sure.
around myself.
Yeah. I love that. Really, it's just like all roads always lead back to Wicked. But what is Wicked? It's all about magic, right?
And there is a good witch and a bad witch because we need both.
We need both because two things are true.
Because two things are true. I could talk about this stuff forever as most
Forever.
people, you know, like that are in love with the woo as we are.
We got our gate in the garden.
That's true. All of the things. Oh my God. We
All
did
the things.
so much today.
We really did. We really covered a lot. I so appreciate you sharing all of your downloads and all the goodness with us.
Mm-hmm.
And thanks, Jackie. That was so fun.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to The Woo Report. For way more woo-woo, please follow and subscribe to The Woo Report podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, or wherever you love to listen. Never miss an episode of The Woo Report by joining the community at thewooreportpodcast.com. Thank you for liking, sharing, rating, and loving on this little slice of magic. I am so, so grateful you are here. Bye.